everybody. I know we have some new faces with us and a lot of returning faces. Appreciate everybody being here. This is the August version of the Sales Leader Roundtable. As you know, we run a monthly roundtable with the idea of sharing, exploring, and learning together as a group of peers who all have similar needs and issues. We're all trying to build our businesses. We're all having to lead other people, and we all have to create revenue for our business. So very important topics, and I appreciate you taking an hour of your time once a month to sort of get other people's perspectives, hear from people that might have faced similar situations and hear their viewpoint, and even sometimes disagree on process. But at the end of the day, you have all those diversity of thoughts and ideas that allow you to hopefully become a better person, a better leader, and hopefully generate better results for your team and for your company. So that's what we're all about. I have a cohort in crime to help me with this monthly, Mr. Jim Debo. And today we have an unbelievable speaker in Mark. And I'm going to let Jim in a minute introduce Mark, but he has a really great topic that I think is one of the, I met Mark a number of years ago, and he's really been on the cutting edge of how to think about marketing. He's really helped a whole lot of businesses. I don't want to steal Jim's intro thunder, but we got a great topic today in 0-point selling. Really, it's about using data for marketing and sales. And I know we all have talked about this in different times, but I think Mark brings a unique perspective to this and is an expert in this area. So Jim, why don't you take a second, and I know you know Mark as well, introduce him to the team, and we'll get him going on his presentation, and then we'll have a great discussion afterwards.
Thanks, Kenley. That's actually all I was going to say about Mark, so I guess we can just let him get going. So no, I got a chance to meet Mark a few years ago as well. We've kind of become friends through this process, networking together and spending time together. We actually share a client together as well. Mark has a background in leadership and marketing and sales. And like many of us who tend to venture out on our own, realize that there are some gaps and things that he can, through his expertise, help with. So he went and created his company, Rethink Revenue, develop a system called 0-point selling, which is what we're going to get to learn about today. Wrote a book called Trusted Team, which is all about getting yourself known, liked, and trusted with not a lot to work with to get going. And so it's just really exciting to see what he's done and what he continues to do for his clients. So without further ado, Mark, please take it away.
Thanks, Jim. That was really nice of you. I was surprised.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I was like, oh God, what's he going to say? Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Perone with Rethink Revenue. The marketing thing is something I focus on. That is where 0-point selling starts. A little background on myself. I've been doing some capacity of Rethink Revenue for the last 15 years. I actually kind of went to college, left college, went to college, left college, went to college. And at the end of my last stint, right before I graduated, I had some capstone classes that I figured out I could sell as a project. So what ended up happening is I was doing my capstone class while I was doing a consulting engagement with a construction company. And through that, kind of learned some of the organizational leadership perspective. That's what I graduated with, BS in that. And then was starting to apply that stuff, and the on-the-job training piece of it melded with that education was pretty interesting at the end of the course of my last stint in school. From there, kind of went, stayed in the construction industry, was tasked with my 10th day on the job. They handed me a custom developed on-premise CRM, and I didn't even know what that was at the time, to be honest with you. I had worked at a previous construction company in Salesforce. This is before the advent of the cloud. For those of you that are younger, it used to be on servers in-house. For those of us that are a little older, we remember, what it was like to manage all that hardware, and it was not fun. So through this process, getting handed this project, I did not know database anything. I'd used Excel spreadsheets lightly. This is right around the time that ACT was a big deal. If you guys know what that is, it's like kind of the first CRM that was any kind of mainstream market. And I was tasked with deploying a CRM in a construction company that was as analog gets. A lot of hammers and nails, a lot of screws, a lot of drills, no home row skills, let alone emails. Some of them didn't even have personal emails. So I had to figure out how to apply this learn the database, apply the database, and make it work. Fast forward 1 year, I ended up setting a record in the same year that I deployed the CRM. Numbers are kind of important here. Typically, they did about 4.3 million in revenue. January 1, I predicted they were going to do 6.5 million in revenue. They told me, quote unquote, you can't predict what we're going to do in sales because you don't control the goddamn weather, is what they said to me. What I said back to them is, I got a plan. I'm going to try and execute it. And I've got buy-in from my division. So we're just going to make it happen and see what happens. So 52 weeks later, I'm looking back, and every week I was on pace on my predicted sales, and we ended up at 6.6 million in revenue. So learned a CRM, deployed a CRM, implemented a CRM, got total buy-in from my division, and didn't lose a person or gain a person during that year that I was going through it. So unbeknownst to me, I'd figured something out. I'd come up with a methodology that organized how we think about what a CRM is. And I am going to talk about a brand of CRM today. Let the record show I do not drink the Kool-Aid. It actually fits my methodology for marketing and sales very, very well. So when I use the word HubSpot, if anybody is not a HubSpot fan or is a HubSpot fan, the database is organized very well for the business case user. So I will talk about that a little bit today, but by no means is it a pitch, just so we're clear. Into my tenure at that construction company, I got hired at a ERP company before I knew what ERP was, to go travel the United States deploying something called GE Centricity. Does everybody know what an ERP is? Anybody not familiar with that? Okay, cool. So they paid me to go train people on a piece of software I didn't know. I'd figured it out by the time I'd been on site, but nonetheless, they put me in charge of deploying the largest deployment of GE Centricity with this front-end suite in Arkansas. And basically, it was a successful implementation there too. I used the same CRM methodology that I'd done at the construction company within the ERP landscape. Where this all comes from was named later. It's called 0-point selling. And the idea behind it is this: information comes into a system, and a lot of companies, who's a marketer and who's a salesperson in here? Can you guys raise your hand? Who's a salesperson? Okay, nobody's a marketer. All right, excellent. No arguments then. The idea behind 0-point selling is this. It's really cool to look at this from a sales perspective, because you'll understand why it works this way pretty quickly. So normally organizations get a piece of software and it's deployed by the IT and finance people. It's catering to the marketing and sales people though when they deploy it. So one of the things that comes up often is just put information here, and then we all have visibility to what's going on. Then we can report on it. Well, none of that is for the salespeople in reality. Some of it is meeting notes, right? We like that part. Some of it can be like stages and tasks, so you can keep track of your sales pipeline, which is cool too. But the vast majority of it is designed for micromanagement. And post that ERP situation, I started working for the same CRM company that had sold the construction company the piece of software that I was worked on at the construction company. Well, I found out that 70% of CRM deployments fail. And the reason why is because of what I just said. The micromanagement around CRM is horrible. So what I did is I spent 3 years working for this value-added reseller of a product called Enforce CRM. And I fleshed out what today is known as 0-point selling. I started with this guy right here. This is what we call our customer journey framework. And it's a relatively simple little infographic. But once we get into the discussion points around it, it becomes very apparent that there's a lot here. Okay. So first and foremost, we break things into divisions of labor. I know we don't typically call sales a division of labor. We don't usually call marketing a division of labor, but remember, you're dealing with the bluest collar, white collar guy there is. Building things from the ground up is how I think about things. Simplifying so we can have unified discussions about points of interest within a workflow is what I do. All right. So within this customer journey framework, we've got some CRM language blended in here. The idea that when we're tasked with going to find prospects, networking groups, business card exchange, after hour socials, we're looking for targets is what we're doing. We don't know anything about anybody that's in the room. We have zero information about what's going on until you spark up a conversation. That leads us to a blindness when we go out and about. We spend a lot of time thinking about who we can target and where we can find them. Again, 0-point selling solves this problem. Within this customer journey framework, we've got targets, suspects, prospects, and clients. Now, I do want to put some emphasis on a certain point here. When I use the word lead, I have my own definition of it that I use. So just keep in mind, it's an arguable point. I understand everybody thinks of that word differently when you define it. Databases consider it one thing. When we talk about it conversationally, it's another. For our purposes, a lead is someone that knows the benefit of what your company does and is curious about how that benefit applies to their situation. Okay. When I say situation, I'm careful here because we're considering the B2C and B2B perspective within that, right? If you're B2B, might be a piece of software. I see that you do work with construction companies and CRM. Show me the benefits of your product so we can apply it to our business. If you're in the B2B or B2C marketplace, it's more about show me how the consumer side of things is going to work when I use your product or service. So is this familiar language for everyone? Do we feel like we're on the same page with this? Yeah. Okay. So the interesting point to reference here is your lead is right here. This little line, this little subtle line is where your lead comes in. And the other point of reference, the salesperson's favorite point of reference, is your revenue generation point. Flipping a proposal on somebody and having them sign on the line that's dotted. Everything that happens after this is post-revenue activity, okay? So when I say that, understand that this line is your finance department. This is your inventory. This is your warehousing, depending on what business you're in. This is everything that comes after the point of sale, okay? Anything before that to me is marketing and sales. I simplified this so we could have discussions about it, and I can lay this out for anybody that's on the street or anybody that's just as smart as anybody on the street, the C-level people, right? So the idea here is we're starting to sequence things, okay? These definitions are really specific within my workflow. I tried to augment really familiar CRM language into this customer journey framework so that anybody who wanted to see the way something works could apply it to almost like an accounting formula. If you go to school for accounting, there's like 2 accounting formulas. It's pretty easy once you understand the formula to start to work on being an accountant. Well, we don't have that same thing in marketing and sales. There's no academia that's going to show you a workflow on universal workflow for marketing and sales. It doesn't work that way, right? IT people and finance people don't understand what we're tasked with here. There's no simple answer to this. There's no backbone to everything. We have to kind of on the job train this, on the job learn this, right? So if you work for an organization and you're tasked with lead generation, we start to get into an area where you might want to protect yourself as a salesperson. I get some flack for what I'm about to say next, just so we're clear. Again, I'm trying to navigate these arguable points. So if you guys are in charge of an organization, just hear me out on this, okay? Typically, when a salesperson's hired, they do sales and marketing. Cold calling, function of marketing. It is not a function of selling, okay? The reason why I say that, if you have to reach your hand out and introduce yourself and say what you do, you are kicking off a workflow from a target to a suspect, from a suspect to a prospect, if they make it this far. Okay. Hi, my name's Mark. I work at Rethink Revenue. I do a lot of sales and marketing stuff, for lack of a better term, right? When I have to put what I do out in front of it and start a conversation about, oh, what's that mean? That is marketing. That is not selling. 2 totally different things, but organizations don't take responsibility for that because they want to pay us commission. They don't necessarily want to pay us a salary of the marketing and sales area, right? So if you haven't noticed, I'm very pro salespeople, and I've done a lot of scientific work around what the organization looks like when it deploys a CRM. All right. I'm going to stop here for a second. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I just said? Anything that's interesting, any definitions you'd like? No.
Mark, I really appreciate that you said that salespeople do both market and sell, because that tends to get lost on a regular basis. So for you, what I heard and what I tend to tell people is marketing is anything that creates an opportunity. Sales is what creates the revenue.
That's correct. That's correct. Sales focuses on prospects. So your pipeline management's really important, right? 10x your pipeline. I don't know who's heard that one. 3x your pipeline. So above the line, we've got my customer journey framework. Below the line is an example of something that is a tech stack. Okay. This concept of something that has a centralized hub and elements that we're all familiar with, right? Phone application, email, Calendly, or something like Calendly, Zoom, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. All of that stuff can feed your centralized CRM. I am going to bring up HubSpot here because it's very simple to integrate things here. Okay. I use this within my business networking, and I get people this tech hub fully enabled, everything paid for $100 a month. Okay. So in business networking, really specifically, I run something within a network that you guys may or may not have heard of, but I run Tech Corner, and I tell people, if you're in virtual networking, set this up for yourself. Get the $30 tier of HubSpot, get the paid Calendly tier, make sure you pay for your Zoom link, and then the rest falls in behind it. It's really simple to do it. So this is the equipment portion of it, right? What is a tech stack? It's a bunch of pieces of software or hardware stacked on top of one another that are some kind of integration between them. That's the idea behind it, okay? Within the tech stack, your marketing funnel is warehoused, right? So I'll use Facebook organic. I'm not a big believer in that, but that's my own opinions. If you're using Facebook paid advertising, it works really, really well. LinkedIn, there's a integration between LinkedIn and HubSpot that is killer. It strips off all the profile information and drops in the CRM for you with a click of a button. Zoom meetings are integrated, time, date stamped, Calendly, and then your email, prefer Gmail within this ecosystem. Microsoft products don't play well with integrations. And then ultimately the free phone application that comes with the HubSpot instance, okay? Overall, there's one thing missing from this. It is called Fathom Note Taker. You'll see that it's here with me now. If you guys are on your own with your own CRMs, it is free. Go find it. It is a godsend for those of us that write in hieroglyphics and draw pictures for our notes. Phenomenal. It is awesome. It came out 9 months ago. It works every time. It's connected to Zoom. So every time you have a Zoom meeting, it jumps in with you. It transcribes the meeting for you. It translates broken English too. So if you have a English speaking person, that's their second language, it works really well. AI note takes for you and then deposits those AI notes on the contact record and the company record within your CRM. And it happens every time. It's awesome. So the tech stack's important. Marketing funnel starts to bring this together, and then your sales pipeline falls after. Okay. Those elements are all kind of what I talk about within the scope of 0 point selling. The $1 million question: what is 0 point selling? Well, to define it, we've got to have some common understanding about things. Does everybody recognize this thing? Yeah. All right. So this is our entire marketable audience. Can't market anywhere else besides here. That's it. If you sell air or water, this is your entire market share. Congratulations, you have the biggest market there ever was, right? So let's get into this a little bit. How many people is that? 8.1 billion, right? Number of people in the United States, 330 million. These are big ass numbers, okay? If these numbers don't mean much to you, understand it's a lot of people, okay? To put that many people in a CRM would be crazy. But if you sold air or water, that would be your entire marketable audience. if I have the first names and last names of every single person on the planet, I have now started at the 0 point of marketing. Okay. When we break this down a little bit, depending on the channel that you're going out to market on, you want to get as much data as you can from it. Okay. Different criteria for different platforms. I'm going to talk about digital right now, but this applies to email also. Okay. To email someone on an email channel, you have to have a first name and you have to have an email address. Probably a complimentary piece of information alongside it. Maybe a job title, maybe a business name, but to communicate, the 0 point for that channel is a first name and an email address. If we go over to Facebook and you want to do paid advertising on Facebook, you need a first name, a last name, and a zip code. You can put your advertisement in anybody's Facebook feed that you have a first name, a last name, and a zip code for. That is the 0 point on that platform. When we start building data and profiling individuals, we think about it in terms of the marketing channels that we're going to go out on. Okay. Within LinkedIn, you really only need a LinkedIn URL. You don't even really need a first name, last name. Most of the time, if you're like open searching for prospects on LinkedIn, you're going to type in the search bar like CEO, enter, click people, and then there's some filtering criteria at the top. Maybe you only want to do it I'm in Ohio, in the state of Ohio. So I've used a 0 point, which was originally to search, it was CEO, but I'm looking for LinkedIn profiles. That contains all the rest of the information you need to communicate on many different channels. Does that make sense to everyone how I'm thinking about this? Okay. So if I'm an organization and I believe in 0 point selling, I have a sales team. I'm the perfect organization in this case. I'm not going to make you market. I'm going to start to introduce my marketing messaging with a benefit alongside it on the channels that we're talking about. And when somebody responds to whatever our messages that we put out and they say, this is really interesting. I see that you do A for companies like mine. Tell me how that works for me. That's the dream for salespeople, right? That's where we started. That's how we get our close ratio. Start to think about, yeah, if I answer that question 10 times, if I'm good, 30% close ratio. So I know 3 people out of that are going to close over this amount of time. That gamification idea is what we're starting to get at here. Leveling the playing field with information is the trick. So when a company hires me, I deploy a CRM. Not every time HubSpot. Sometimes I work on on-premise CRMs that are connected to ERPs, which is not that great, but it works. What I do is I have a database of 135 million people that are all US based. It includes first name, last name, LinkedIn profile, company LinkedIn profile, website. Some of them I have personal addresses for. If I could get shoe size, it would be in my database. Okay. What I do is I peel off a portion of my database and I import it into the CRM. The reason why is most people are like, if I only knew who to sell to, then I'd sell some stuff. That's what the organization says too. If we could just identify who's in our market, that would be awesome. Cool. Let's overcome that roadblock. Here's 50,000 people. You got the information. Are you winning now? No. You've got to figure out an outreach methodology. You've got to outline a sales process that's going to elicit a 30% close ratio so you can get some predictable forecasting out of it. All those elements are built into the 0 point selling implementation style. Fundamentally, it's data first. It's believing that there are 930 million people on LinkedIn and you can sell to them. Let's be clear here. Typically, when I talk to the older generation, my customers aren't on LinkedIn. None of my customers are on LinkedIn. Hold on. 8.1 billion people on the planet, and damn near 1 million of them are on the LinkedIn platform. You're telling me that your business is so unique that every single person that you could do business with is not on that platform. What we should be saying is we're not marketing on that platform, not our customers aren't on it. Because if you go on there and start marketing, you will get customers from that platform. Believe it or not, Facebook's the same way. I don't know. I'll give you guys a little trick here in a minute on Facebook that's pretty interesting. If I can log in, we'll see how this works. I have a new laptop. The idea here is we start to play the numbers game and we drive with information first. Okay. I'm saying a lot of words right now, but this isn't really that difficult to figure out. I don't know why I'm the only one that's talking about it this way, because I'm really not that smart when it comes to this. I just see patterns and pull information. But applying it to a database and putting people like us on top of that database creates RAM air for an organization. It throttles up everything that you can do because you don't have to spend the time, data entry, first name, last name, email address. Let's be clear, I kind of cheated here. I'm a lazy sales guy with no home row skills. So I'm like, I'm going to import the data so I don't have to type all that shit out. Like, I don't need to put in company address, name of company, website, what SIC code they are, what NAICS code they are. Like, why am I doing all this? I can't type. It takes me forever to do this. Import it instead. Connect up a system, a tech stack that's going to drive all that information into a home hub or HubSpot, right? If you want to use that as a CRM, you can use whatever you want for this, to be honest with you. Salesforce, Pipeliner, Pipedrive. I don't really like that one that much because it's only sales pipeline management, but it is what it is. As we move forward a little bit, I do want to get on the Facebook thing for a minute because I do want to give you guys a little tip here within Facebook. Who is on Facebook, first of all? I know this is a contentious thing. Is anybody on Facebook currently? Not right this second, but like, I remember. Okay. All right. So Facebook's really interesting because it set the standard for marketing in digital. Not everybody knows this, okay? Facebook is the first platform that created an ads environment within the feed. It used to be a phenomenal place to B2B sell when it was organic because you had a huge reach. Anytime you posted something, it would go to thousands of people, much like LinkedIn is today. LinkedIn 2 years ago, we'll say, okay? LinkedIn today is much different. It's governed quite a bit now. Like, your reach is going to be limited to, if you're getting 1,000 impressions on a post, you're doing pretty well on that platform. Okay. The idea of Facebook's really cool. And I'm going to see if I can pull this up. Big asterisk here. I'm about to pull up my Facebook and I have a lot of varied friends. So whatever comes up in my feed, I'm going to pre-apologize for just in case somebody's done something silly. Okay. Let's make sure I can log in. I'm not going to do this. This is going to take me forever to figure that out. I'll tell you this, the next time you're on Facebook, do this count for yourself. The second post in every single feed, no matter what, is going to be an advertisement. How do you know that? At the top, it says sponsored. Every fifth post thereafter is also an advertisement. How do you know that? It says sponsored. This is reflective of TV. 20% of your feed, commercials. 20% of any show you watch on TV, commercials. We're pre-trained for that, right? Radio advertising is the same way. The percent of advertisements is really similar across the board. Facebook does the same thing. Now, there's 3 little dots on those advertisements you guys should take a look at, and it'll say, why am I seeing this ad? Okay. When you do that, it reveals the data they have, right? This is inner 0-point selling. Somebody went on the platform on the back end and said, I got some dollars to spend and I want to target people like this. The difference between the traditional way of approaching Facebook and the way I do it are pretty different. Facebook wants you to say, advertise to everybody that likes Nike shoes or Mary Kay products or is interested in small businesses. That gives them a broader chance to spend your money on their platform. What I say is, upload the list from your CRM that has a first name, a last name, and a zip code. Those are the only people you're going to reach. If you've got 2,500 people in your database, you can put 2,500 people on Facebook and say, show them this ad. I have $20 a day to spend on it. You send them an email, you hit them on LinkedIn with a message, you show up in their Facebook feed, you start omni-channel marketing. It all started with the data that you had in your database. It's a controlled methodology to start to launch a brand strategy and a lead marketing strategy. Does that make sense to everyone? Is anybody browning out on me and you're like, what are you talking about? No, we're on. Okay, cool. Okay. So the idea behind all this is when you start to look at things from an information perspective. It's not about how many business cards you get. Who networks in here? Does anybody network? Yeah. How many of you guys went to a networking meeting? You're like, oh, I loved what you said. Let me get your card. Let's schedule some time together. 3 weeks later, you're like, I dropped the card in my car again and I forgot to fish it out of there, or I washed it, or whatever it is. We don't have that problem in the virtual environment. We have Calendly links for this, right? The idea that we go data first is really important. Who's got a Calendly link? One of you guys drop your Calendly link in the chat. I'll show you all a little trick that's pretty cool. When you guys network, do you guys go for strategic partners, or do you go for just transactional, like you're trying to sell your stuff?
Strategic partners.
Strategic.
Cheyenne, strategic. Jennifer,
Strategic.
strategic. Beth, yeah. Andrew, strategic. Transactional,
Yeah, strategic.
strategic.
All of the above.
Cool. Do you guys all have CRMs? Yeah.
Yep.
Put a property in that
HubSpot,
CRM.
Seamless.
Put a property in that CRM that says calendar link. Label them strategic partner. And the next time I introduce Jim Diebold to somebody, I can say, hey, somebody, I really want you to meet Jim. We actually have an instance of this right now. This guy named Steve Caton, I want to introduce him to Jim. I'm going to take Jim's Calendly link up here. I'm going to put it in my CRM. I'm going to have it forever there. So instead of sending that fun email, hey, Jim, you're the greatest ever at blah, 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 and I wanted you to be connected to this great person. Can you guys meet? Waiting for the email to come back. Hey, Jim, great to meet you. Thanks, Mark. You're the greatest networker ever. I'm really glad when you send me stuff. Jim, do you have some time available on Tuesday at 3? 4 days later, Jim's answering back, no, not Tuesday at 3. Mind you, you're the greatest networker ever in that same email, right? No, I don't have time on Tuesday at 3. What about Friday at 4? 2 days later, same thing, back and forth, right? It drags out forever. You hold these calendar links in your CRM, you're collecting data, really good. You're sharing data, really good. Hey, Steve, do you got time on Thursday at 12? Come on. At 12:30? Great. Let me schedule something for you. Steve Caton at email address at steve.com. Mark Perone is introing Steve because ... Schedule event. It goes on Jim's calendar. It goes on Steve's calendar. They know why they're connected, and the meeting is happening on the day that they both have available. Works every time. If you don't like it, I apologize. I'm going to do it to you if I have your stuff, because I'm not sending emails. I don't read them, and I don't want to see the conversation that comes up after when you don't connect. Okay. The idea here is, going back to this 0-point selling methodology, is start to align yourself with a strategy. Okay. This idea that we can understand marketing from a different perspective here. Really, it's all about having 10,000 people out there that you're putting messaging out to in some way, shape, or form. They start to know who you are, right? If you have a decent CRM, you can see who opens emails. You can see who clicked on websites. You can see who went to Facebook pages and filled stuff out. Those people know you. Distill that down and send them a new message set. Hey, I know you know us. Why? Because I'm a creep on the internet. I saw what you did. I know you went to my website, right? However you want to say it. Don't say it like that, but you know what I mean. Interested to see if you found anything there that piqued your interest. A subset of those people are going to come through and say, actually, I am a little bit interested. Let's have a conversation. We're back to the lead. That is a lead. I'm interested in what it is that you do professionally. I would like to see how that benefit applies to me. That goes in your pipeline, and now you have an opportunity that goes against your 10-to-3 ratio. You start to play the numbers game there. The idea that 10,000 people leads to 3,000 people, leads to 300 people, leads to 100 people. changes the dynamic of the way we think about things. Again, it all goes back to the information. We certainly need the people skills. We certainly need to have the ability to understand the difference between a feature and a benefit. These are all common things now, right? If you're a pro salesperson, you understand what I'm talking about. Within that, you have a strategy that starts to develop, and it's all information driven. This is the way selling is going to happen into the future. When AI starts to really kick in, more and more contact information is going to be available for you in easier and easier ways. You're not going to need guys like me that have been warehousing it for 10 years. You'll end up with stuff at your fingertips. I heard you, Brian, did you say seamless AI?
Yeah, we just wrapped seamless AI into our HubSpot. So a lot of the stuff you're saying really resonates. And I most importantly, the differentiation between marketing and sales is key. I'm an asset-based lender. So I don't really market this. Someone in my marketing department markets it, and I'm skeptical whether it's going to generate valid leads for what we do. But I see its value on a lot of other relative issues.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about your philosophy on sales, and we're sort of like Sandler people. You sell around pain. So yeah, exactly. How do you feel? Are you in pain? How can I help relieve your pain? And I tell my wife, I'm like a root canal specialist. You don't talk people into root canals. And so is your tooth hurt? No, thanks. Keep my card. I'll get in touch with you later when your tooth hurts. And that's that's the marketing side of it. The sales side is, oh, your tooth hurts. Who else are you talking to? What are they saying to you? And how can we possibly get there? And so wrapping the seamless into the HubSpot, I question it, but I'm going to go along. I'm a team player and see how our organization handles that.
You apply what we're talking about today and you'll look at it in a different light. There's a lot of data available. Seamless isn't one of my favorites, just to be honest with you. But
it not mine, but like I said, I get paid to do what they tell me to do.
I hear you. So the idea behind this is that we're starting to bolt things together and start to think in terms of information systems. If you go back to the 0 point, things become much more logical, right? Like if I know that your business is going to be a little bit harder to profile, but no matter what you do, every business is uniquely similar. They all market, they all sell, I think deliver something.
I think the marketing aspect just needs to be directed in the right space. If we're marketing towards referral sources versus end users, I see more value because we're kind of analogous to a mortgage guy. Like, mortgage guy calls you on the phone like, hey, you want to refinance your $1 million mortgage with me? You're like, no, I do it with Sam. I work with him all the time. Or I talk to my accountant and he tells me who to talk to. You rarely get a cold call for a rocket mortgage that's going to succeed. I don't take those calls.
The strategic partner marketing is exactly what we're talking about. Go ahead, Kinley.
Mark, let me change the concept a little bit. Maybe this will help, and it'll help me as well. You talked about, you have this 150 billion database that you load into the CRM. You're using this information. Say I want to focus on healthcare, and I want to focus on COOs, CFOs, CEOs of hospital or healthcare organizations. That's my target, right? Can I get that from Zoom Info or other different sources to pull into HubSpot to give me that baseline start? Or are you suggesting it needs to be done a different way?
No, that's perfect.
So, and you would help bring the right, I guess, mix. Let's use everyone sort of knows what Zoom Info is for the most part. You're able to take Zoom Info and say, okay, I'm going to go out and in these 9 states, get these types of healthcare organizations, and you're just going to load them right into the database. Obviously, I can do that for free, but I'm now starting to manage who starts doing all these multi-channels, right? And those are the ones that bubble up with high intent, high interest, that then you score them in HubSpot till you get to a place where they're now no longer, they're suspects starting to become prospects, right?
Yeah, the lead scoring thing's arguable. I don't think that's for every industry, to be honest with you. I understand what you're saying, but that's an IT finance approach to selling. you don't need a high lead score for somebody to say, I want to buy something today because I need it.
Right. No, I get that.
You know what I mean? Like,
But
so the
your-
idea.
But your 0 point selling is helping do that, right? Because it's all these multi-channels. You know that if they look at your LinkedIn posts, and plus I'm spending money on whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, against these profiles. So if any of those people go there, I show up with my ad, right? I got $2,000 a
Yep.
month for Google ads, right? So all of a
Yeah.
sudden my target audience starts seeing my Google ads.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about. The Google, knowing how the platforms works is important. Okay. Targeting on Google is a little bit different than you would do on Facebook. You can't just upload a list to Google. Google ad campaigns and banner ads are a little bit different. They are like retargeting concepts and
Yeah, they're
understanding what
retargeting.
keywords you search for. So that channel is knowing how that one works, right? But yes, similar situation. Put your ads in front of the right people and they will come through. I prefer to name them. I'd rather know that I put my name in front of somebody else and say, did they see it? No. Did they see this one? No. Did they see that one? Yes. They're on that channel. Let's work that channel now, right? My approach is the same as your mailbox. If I know your address and your first name, I can send you something. Do I know it's going to get delivered? 100%. The difference between your mailbox and digital, I know if you opened it and I know if you clicked on something, so that buyer intent starts to be there. Two different things, right? I argue this all the time in roofing. They're like, oh, I'm going to canvas and send mailers. I'm like, you're going to door knock till your brains fall out. Like, what are you talking about? That makes no sense. Why wouldn't you just canvas a neighborhood virtually? Like a digital marketing campaign there makes way more sense. So what'd you say? You said hospitals and healthcare. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah. I'd use that as an example. Yeah.
And what's your job title that you're looking for there?
COO.
COO, CFO.
All over the United States.
It could be as an example, but you could just pick 2 or 3 states, whatever.
All right. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the power of what I'm talking about here. Do you have a CRM?
Yeah, HubSpot.
Perfect. Chief operations. I don't know why this is coming up. COO. Let's see what happens. That's not going to work. So I can put a list in here and ask for exactly what you're saying. I can profile COO. I got to take all these off here now. And I can drop a list in the chat right now and give you a ton of people, a few thousand, I think. And then the question is, what do you do with them then? That's the trick. If you can get Zoom info, fine, but we've solved one problem. I want to list the COOs at hospitals and healthcare facilities. Okay, here, 3,000 of them. Have fun. Well, what do I do with it now? Well, you import it, first of all. Second, you work that list down over time. That's a list that somebody can build a career on, right? You only need 3,000 people. Like, seriously, you can make millions of dollars off of 3,000 people. So once you figure out these channel methodologies and start to think about the information that you have, I got first name, last name, LinkedIn profile. Click on LinkedIn profile, start stalking them on the platform. We do something called activity-based prospecting on that platform. We go and look at the people that we want to see and see if they posted recently. We go and then comment on their posts. From that, we develop a conversation with them. Hey, you want to be first level connections? Doesn't really mean anything, right? But yes, we do. All right, first sign of commitment. You start to break it down on that channel and become better connected. You can use it on Facebook. And I'm not talking about these things like you should buy these things. I'm just using them as examples because they're all marketing channels. If skywriting worked, I'd be talking about it, right? If I could send smoke signals in that channel and it worked, I would talk about it. But like sending carrier pigeons, however you want to do it, fine. If it works for you, great. But understanding that in the state of the universe now is digital. Have a database you own. For all you salespeople that work at other companies that have CRMs, I hope to God there's no owners of companies in here that have salespeople when I say this. Get a free CRM instance and upload any data that you give to them and put it in your own database. That way you owned it first. That's the trick. Like you're gonna get fired or you're gonna move on. One of the two is gonna happen. I've had 40 jobs probably in sales, right? The idea of transitioning, I wish I had lists from the very beginning, knowing what I know now. If I've had a career's worth of information in my database from back then, I got information from other places now, but if I knew all those people, I could sell locally easily. I could stay in my same industry and move over, and now I've got a ready-made a prospecting list, right? So that's the kind of concept that I'm coming from. It's new-ish somehow, some way. It's like cutting-edge thinking. I understand why, but I don't know why I'm the only one talking about it. I've not heard of this anywhere else. I've not seen it anywhere else. I didn't get it from a company that sells concept selling stuff. I didn't go to Sandler and mimic any of it. I just figured it out along the way and then started warehousing data. Now I do have a pretty good skill set of ferreting out where I can get information, probably know what you voted the last 10 years on the presidential election. If I look your name up, I can probably see if you voted or how you voted from my database, but I know how to do that. It's a different story, right? That's what I get paid to do, really. The idea that information first is where you start is the trick to this whole 0-point selling thing.
So there was a lot of stuff that Mark gave. Really cool information, breaking it down to what are the minimal number of things needed to know, the 0 point, to get the group of folks that you're going to start marketing to. Then, of course, there is the how are we going to market to them? So what questions do we have to get any clarifications from the stuff that Mark has shared?
You all knew it already?
Or how are people using it or not using it? And what can they learn to make their organization stronger?
I will tell you this, I've had 164 clients with under the umbrella of Rethink Revenue. 162 of them have set a sales record the first year that I've implemented. Jim's on one right with me right now. It's a 2-year deal with these guys. They're going to set a sales record next year. I guarantee it. If the entire organization can do it, each individual that works there can do it too. It's the same system from the individual up to team, up to organization. It never not works. All right,
Mark,
Kimberly.
what are your perspectives? Mark, what are your perspectives on optimizing the quality of lead flow?
Well, Brian kind of touched on that too. The old sales team talking about how shitty marketing is, right? That's how we do it. The optimization of lead flow for me is
No, not the optimization of lead flow, the optimization of quality of leads.
so understanding that someone needs to hear a message in a certain way is important. Okay. So if I put a video up on Facebook, paid advertising, and I put that same video up on LinkedIn, the audience isn't going to receive it the same way. Right. So a lot of marketing companies use a blanket concept of advertising where they're like, we got ads, let's put them on platforms. Your specialists on those platforms are going to understand how those audiences uptake information. You're going to present benefits in a different way on the channels that you're coming from, right? So like a hard mailer concept, the type of people that read hard mailers, you can figure that out. You want to have a value proposition that aligns with that audience. We teach something internally on my projects called AMCAF, audience, message, channel, asset, and follow-up. You create a message or you get an audience, one of the two. If you've got an audience, let's say it's females that are 29 to 36 years old. You go and provision a message that aligns with the benefit that that audience wants to hear. So you tailor a message to that audience, choose a channel to put it on because there's rules, right? You can't email somebody the same stuff that you can put on Facebook. Those are two different things. So your channel's important. Hook, story, offer within that marketing message is always there. Your subject line's your hook in your email. The little story you tell should be short and sweet, 3 sentences. And somehow you've got a call to action that's the offer. You take that over to Facebook, it's the same thing. We got a headline at the top, a picture on it. So the quality of the lead has to do with the message that you're sending the correct audience. This goes by a lot of businesses because they think of marketing as a blanket, like everybody, we market, we know how to do Facebook, so let's send emails on the same thing. It's not the same. The channel's really important. At a soccer game, you see soccer players drinking Coke, right? At a football game, you typically don't see soccer players drinking Coca-Cola. It's an easy association there.
Beth, you had a question?
I did. I was just curious, you hit on Facebook sponsored ads and you mentioned it again. I mean, what's your feedback or what's your thoughts on getting business from those sponsored ads?
It's one of my favorite things to do. The idea that if I take my audience and select it out of my database and then curate a video and the way, I don't know how you're asked, do you know how to use Facebook ads?
I do. I
Okay.
do. Probably not to your level, but I
didn't mean it like that. I was going to say something about the split testing, right? So when you put up a Facebook ad, you should have 6 different messages that go out for one campaign. One of them should be a video, or 2 of them should be a video. 2 of them might be a meme, right? Something funny. The other 2 might be just like a static advertisement of some kind. And you start to figure out what resonates. Now, the reason why you do that is so you have a varied presentation of the same message, right? If I saw the same video over and over and over in my feed, I'd be like, stop showing me this ad, right?
Right.
Well, the same company that varies that in a split test is going to send you the same information, but in different ways. So when you consume it, your entertainment factor is there, right? I love the Facebook platform. Why? 3.9 billion people are on it. So I can go there and pretty much guarantee that my people are on that platform. If I've segmented my list properly, I target Mark Perone in 45066. I don't ask it to go out and say people that like soapbox derby cars or whatever the thing is around what people like. When you drop your list in there, it changes the game. You know who you're sending stuff to, and you know those same people might respond. When they do, it comes in. You're like, oh, I was right. Now you do have to have a few thousand people for that. If you do, you're good. Keep coming back to those ads and it works really, really well. You don't need to solicit millions of people on that platform like everybody thinks.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I think one of the key takeaways just in that little nugget, I call it golden nugget, is loading up your own list so that you're being very directive on your target audience versus a sort of a guidepost segment. You're really being, first, exactly who you want it to hit. I like that.
Yeah. You have visibility to the list that you're sending to before it's sent. So what you're saying is I'm fishing for that. I'm going fishing and I want to catch this type of fish. So you're going to bring the right kind of bait for it, right? That idea of your audience selection beforehand to say, I'm going to try this platform. I'm going to try a few different ad sets over a period of time and see what happens. Also, I got their LinkedIn profiles. Hey, you might have seen me in your Facebook feed. I do networking. If I get a list of people that are going to be in those networking groups before I go, I actually pay to put my face with video and an introduction in their Facebook feed. When I show up, this happens more times than not. Man, I know you from somewhere. No shit. That's crazy. You might have seen me around. I don't know. I got one of those faces that a lot of people think that, and then somebody somewhere connects the dots. They're like, oh, I saw you on Facebook. Yeah, so did I. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I'm not a Facebook ads expert, but I know little tricks, how to get ahead of things. And that one's a great one. I love doing that one. It's like a magic trick when people are like, oh, I've seen you on TV or on Facebook. Yeah, it's not that hard to do, really.
So are you finding Zoom Info to be your main tool that you're using?
From Kinley's, I'm going to say this 2 different ways. From Kinley's perspective, he was using that as an example of a data point place. Data Axle and Zoom Info, for me, the information that comes from them is garbage. What I'm about to put in this chat is the purest data with validated email addresses, job titles, the LinkedIn profiles are correct. Like all the information that I have is the purest, cleanest information that you can get because I've put a lot of time and money into curating these lists. I don't sell them. I don't make money from this. It's the stuff I use to solicit my audience. It's a different story, right? So it's way better from my perspective, what I have. If that's your only source for data though, that's where you got to start. I cheat too, just so we're clear. Like I'm real clever with this stuff. I go and scrape LinkedIn. I've got all kinds of tools that run automations, and I like compare databases from voting records to LinkedIn to Facebook. Like there's tons of information flying around from my perspective. So I can do it myself, right? Not everybody's a race car mechanic, right? That's not the way it works. You know, I can change my oil, but I don't know about tearing that down. I don't think I'm going to do that. Well, I was like, I want to mold the engine to do this. Like I'm very serious about this being good. I need to get you this data.
Yeah, stick that in, Mark. We're at the top of it, just coming up on the top of the hour. I appreciate everybody's time. Any final questions of Mark before we're going to run out of time for today?
Thanks. Got a bunch of good
Thank you.
takeaways.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your commitment to sharing some of the expertise that you have. And I think you've got all of our wheels sort of spinning. And I know I greatly appreciate the 5 or 6 gold nuggets that I wrote down throughout the conversation that I can either challenge my own organization or the people within it to think about this better and differently a little bit. And I also want to make a plug. Me and Jim look forward to having you on our TV show in the 1st of September on a whole different topic. And so it'll be an exciting time to explore that topic as well. That'll be on the 5th of September on the Tuesday, right after Labor Day at 4 p.m. And you can always get that me and Jim's show on recording. So it's a great opportunity for follow up and hear some other Mark's tidbits and ideas that he uses and a lot of clients and stuff work that he does. But again, thank you a whole lot, Mark. I appreciate it.